Hey, bosses, thanks for joining me today. I am Liza Sivek, and this is Marketing Myths and Magic Podcast. I really appreciate you joining me today, and we are going to get right into it. But first, I want to ask you to please download, subscribe, and follow along with this podcast. We've got lots of great information, and I would love to see you here every week. And without further ado, let's get into this episode. Hello, bosses. This is Liza Sivek and Marketing Myths and Magic Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. And today we are going to talk about why it's important to extend your branding to your packaging. And packaging might be a lot more than you think. Today I'm going to be talking to my friend Nicholle Howell. And she is a graphic designer, and she has a Bachelor's of Fine Arts and was the valedictorian of her class. Smarter than me, Digital Media Arts College, which is now part of Lynn College. And she has a company called Partner with a Spark. And because we like to call her Sparky. So I don't know if she likes us calling her Sparky, but we like to call her Sparky. So I'm going to dive right in here and get started because we have a lot of great things to talk about on this episode. All right. So Nicholle, hi. How are you?
Good evening. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And I'm so glad you were here. So first of all, and I really didn't know this myself until I talked to you about this podcast, where did you begin as an artist and a graphic designer?
Initially just drawing things for my stepfather's motorcycle club. And then after that, in high school, I saw a kid doing homework and I was like, what class is that for? And so I applied to the technical, VOTech type situation that was a partnership between my high school and two local colleges. So I got accepted to that program and just fell in love. It was the first time I'd really touched a computer. I thought that you designed things using Word, Paint, or Microsoft Paint. I had no idea that Illustrator and Photoshop existed. So I spent a whole summer preparing myself to draw that way in a computer. And then I finally get to my classroom and my teacher shows me the Adobe Suite and I get a huge Wacom tablet and a monitor that's 30 inches. And he's like, go for it, learn these programs. And I fell in love. So yeah.
That is awesome. That's interesting. I didn't know you could. I didn't know. I'm sure they exist. I didn't know that there were VOTech, other than drafting, kind of courses that could get you started in that. That's very cool. That is really cool. So you told me about your design curriculum a lot when we were talking about this, and graphic design curriculum talks about advertising and digital illustration and what they still call clip art, though it's all digital now, and drawing and doing all these things on the computer or inputting it into the computer from another media and then manipulating it, correct? I mean, that's basically, in a nutshell, very layman's terms, graphic design. Of course, there is also certain things that you learn, and tell us a little bit about that, about what an ad should include and spacing. I mean, you learned about ratios and how to, make things fit into a 600 by 600 pixel ad, right?
Yes. Our first year in that particular program and then throughout my college career. So it's depending on what you're designing, whether it be web, print, a package, a website, anything, they all have, different formats. And then there's, you have to get your medium from whatever. So if you're taking a photograph, if you're scanning it in, if you're, creating a painting, putting it out, putting it back in the internet, or putting it back on the computer and then manipulating it from there, the possibilities are just endless. And then on top of that, you add typography. So you have all your different fonts. It's sort of endless. And that's how I started, was very general, of here are all of the mediums where you could possibly put a design, and then you can go nuts. And it was really eye-opening as a kid. It's hard to choose. And so since then, I've chosen like all of these different jobs to learn all the pieces and parts of how all that went together, as opposed to just saying, okay, that's how that's done. And I think we'll get into that a little bit as we keep talking.
Definitely, definitely. And I think we're also going to be able to explain to people why they need a graphic designer for a logo or for an ad or for a website, how it's not just something that where you put text and, text has to be a certain size to be readable from so many feet away. So if you're making signage compared to your logo, or if you make a logo too small and you can't blow it up to a larger size, it's no good. Now you've got a pixelated, fuzzy picture. And I think a lot of people don't expect that to be a problem. I think that I blame all the CSI shows for making it look like you just have to like touch a screen and all the pictures blow up really big and really clear. And they can, focus on this one guy and then make a face appear. And, that doesn't happen even in actual police stations, let alone graphic design. But I think there's an unrealistic idea about how this works because there's a lot of magic to it. There's still a lot of skill to it. Maybe someday we'll be able to do all that other stuff. But so I think having a graphic designer is a very, very important piece of the puzzle for at least your basics, if not your entire branding. So that is one of the things we'll be talking about today. So you told me that your design curriculum did not include packaging design and you wanted to learn that. So how did you go about finding a way to incorporate that in your studies?
So in college, I had like one kind of minimal course and they didn't really tell you a whole lot. And then from there, I thought it was so cool about, okay, so let's just say what a planogram is. You walk into Target and you know that in the toy aisle, the Barbies are over here and the micro machines are over here and everything has like a space and it has like a home, let's say on the shelf. That is called a planogram. So when I was trying to figure out everything that I could learn about packaging, the first job that I took as like an extra job was at Target. I was the person that would work up in an office. I would sort out all the sales. And then at 4:00 in the morning on Sundays, I would get there and I would set the shelf. And you have to be able to read this planogram, this plan of where everything goes, and it all fits very perfectly. The bottom shelf is 24 inches deep by 16 inches high. And if you design a package, you want to make sure you can have extra facing. So you want to fit 4 deep, and then you want to make sure that it fits under the sale sign. So nothing is going to be more than 15 inches tall and 4 inches deep. And then you have so much space across the front, which is usually divisible by 24. So, you have a 24-inch wide, a 12-inch, a 10-inch, just however it is. And so I was able to learn that in a really practical way. And then from there, because I really wanted to work in toys, I went on a field trip for a class that I wasn't in to a toy company. I asked all the right questions, and on the way out the door, this woman said, "Would you like to be an intern here?" And I was like, yeah. And she's like, "Okay, well, when you're done working on this project for your teacher, just let me know." And I told her, I was like, "I'm not even in this class." She's like, "Why are you here?" I was like, "Because I was interested. So I'll do the project anyways on top of what I'm doing, and I'll send it to you." And she just thought I was kind of nuts, because when you're in the middle of college studies, just adding a semi thesis to your workload is a bit. And it was interesting. So then I started doing that project. And then a couple years later, after, she might call it stalking, I might say being persistent, she eventually gave me a job at her toy company. They hired me specifically to work on Justin Bieber singing dolls. So yeah, and then it keeps going from there. But
I'm very sorry for that. No offense, Justin. No offense if you're listening. I doubt he's listening. No offense. Never getting a job with Justin Bieber now.
Well, now that he's got all those tattoos, I think his demographic's a little different. So
Possibly,
which we
maybe.
incorporated into the doll, by the way. We had a couple of his tattoos on his doll with real hair at a certain point. So
His tattoos had hair? No, I'm just kidding. Wow, that's crazy. Okay, well, that's good. I don't know a lot about doll making. I used to be involved in selling dolls millennia ago, but not that kind, the collector kind. So, yeah, not a lot with tattoos in what I sold. So though that's cool. So so what I'm hearing is that this is not about happen to be in the right place in the right time. You are someone who seeks out the right place, the right time for you, and you seek out more education. And apparently you also seek out more work for yourself. So, or hopefully you've learned better than that, dear. But no, I got to tell you guys that Nicholle is one of the most bubbly, optimistic people I know, and just really nice, really sweet. And I'm sure she's not, constantly up all the time, but she's very happy. She's very positive, and it's a wonderful thing. It's a really wonderful thing, and I love it. So I'm sure that you made a very good impression on them, and you're so cute and bubbly that how could you be stalking? I'm sure you were adorable in college. So, I'm sure that was fine. So you basically sought out an opportunity to learn, and that led to opportunities for you to actually work in the industry.
Yeah, a lot of them. And prior to, because I was trying to get to the toy company, I took a job at a different consumer goods company. So I was making packaging for Sunbeam blankets, for Margaritaville blenders, for irons. I worked for a large Fortune 100 company that owned a lot of brands. And so I had to work across the board. And so going from consumer products to toys is different. The vernacular is different. The type of packaging is different. The type of information that's on there, the warnings, how long it stays on shelf. Each package is a mini billboard. Well, when you have toys, your packages get a lot smaller than when you have a blender. So just telling the story changes, and that's all really important. Additionally, depending on where you're selling this product, so Walmart, Target, Toys R Us, or like a learning center, like depending on where it is, all of those companies, to fit all of their planograms and to fit all of their initiatives for being environmentally friendly, changes a lot about your package, and it changed like the branding, the look, and the materials that it's made out of. So it's like taking all of those bits and pieces and then moving through the packaging world. It's a lot. Like even as small as if you're making a blender box, the like piece of information that's like really important, it's called a violator on the box. So if the whole box is blue, then this piece of information is red with bright text, and that's called violating the package to get the attention. But when you're designing a Justin Bieber doll, it's called a burst of information. It's like, hey, I sing, and then on a blender, it's I've got 4 extra speeds, and that's the violator. So it just kind of depends who you're talking to.
So the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip, right? The burst, exactly.
That is a burst, yeah.
So that is really interesting, because right there you told me more about the packaging that I kind of, as a marketing and salesperson background, I kind of recognize, but I would not have thought about how much you have to fit on there. Plus you have the warnings, and having worked in juvenile hard good e-commerce, meaning strollers, car seats, as well as soft goods like bedding in the age of recalls and lawsuits, that was a big, big deal. And you had to have a certain language and font and everything, the directions, and we weren't creating them, but we were selling them. So I saw it all the time. So that's really informing a lot of what I saw every day, but didn't know what I was looking at. So that's interesting. I'd like to tell a quick story here that when I worked for a large commercial discount shoe chain, which is no longer in business, that I know of, not around here, this was before I worked anything but a few call center jobs. I was still in college and just out of college, and hadn't had any of the experience I have now or gone down the road I'm going down with my career now. So here I am in this store, and I'm just thinking it's Friday night, and when I get out of here at 9 o'clock, I'm then going home to get changed to go out. This is not a part of my life where I was going home and thinking about work the next day. And they handed me a planogram, and I hadn't had to do it before with somebody because I was still new. And they handed me a planogram and told me to do it with one of the other girls who'd been there. And I proceeded to argue with her that those colors didn't go next to each other well. And I thought that was a silly way to do it. And I'm sure it doesn't matter. We should just do that my way. And she was too introverted to argue with me. And I feel really bad about this now. And I did apologize to her later. I got called on the carpet the next day because he said we had to redo it the next morning and you can't go against the planogram. But he didn't tell me why. All I thought was that is a butt ugly gray brown purse next to this beautiful pink springy purse. But when you're telling me it has to fit, it has to be at the sale sign, the color was about what was going to catch their eye, not what I thought was pretty. But, I was an artist. So, I was in art school. So I knew better, right? So, yeah, obviously I knew absolutely nothing. And in my defense, I was about 20 years old. So that is really funny. So I did not go out of my way to learn what planograms were, obviously. So I'm glad you did. So tell me, when you're talking about packaging, you're talking about all this information you have to fit on a package. It's not just, when you're talking about packaging, it's not just on a shelf. So since the people listening to this, they could be distributors putting grocery items on a shelf and they're trying to buy that shelf space, trying to get at eye level, or they're thinking about their branding in general. They're a business owner and they haven't done this. Branding is commonly thought of as a logo, something you put at the header of your website, header of your email, head of your website, head of your email, and on your social media posts. But obviously, branding can be extended to anything that the customer is going to see or that you're going to put in their hands. So from shopping bags right through what they're getting at their doorstep from Amazon, right? So tell me why branding is important, why we have to extend it to that, and ways we can do that as part of your plan. And we'll talk about different aspects of that plan in a moment.
For sure. So the tangible branding is what I like to call it is your packaging, and it is wildly important. And so as a designer who was in the packaging field and who has also been on the marketing side of things, like when you're starting a style guide, so that's the look of your brand and how that's going to show across a planogram and how that's going to match up with your website and the packaging, or your website, the packaging, and then your business cards, everything across the board, right? So the very first thing you have to do as you're doing that and to accomplish is that when, at the very beginning, when you're designing your logo, you need to design in mind for all of that. So sometimes, depending on what you're selling, you can have your logo displayed in 5 colors. Sometimes it can be in 2 colors. Sometimes it can only be in 1 color. So you really have to think that through. For instance, Big Mouth Floats, which I worked for them too, their logo looked really great in 3 colors. When you brought it down to 1, the person who decided to do that made it so that the tongue was black and then everything else was white. And that just doesn't translate well. You never want a black tongue. That just doesn't read well. And then additionally, if you're
at least not in that industry. I mean, maybe there's
exactly.
a medical application there for that logo, but no, not. We love Big Mouth. Big Mouth is cool. So yeah, we don't want that.
Right. And, additionally, as you're designing something, you also need to keep in mind with your branding in the beginning and how it's going to be used. Are you selling this overseas? So I can talk to you till the cows come home about the warning labels and the communication and the different languages that you have to have when you're designing a packaging or marketing in general that can be used in an English-speaking market, in an English, French, Spanish-speaking market, if you're selling it to the Middle East, if you're selling it to China. There are rules that you have to follow. For instance, with your logo, black tongues or black silhouettes, it's against their cultural background because it makes it look like a ghost. So all of those things are really, really important as you're going through. So if you have a package that is full color in the US and one color in China, you have to make sure that you tell the story properly with all of these cultural things in mind. So throughout my career, I've had to work with lots of people and lots of companies, and I've had to deal with a lot of the international things as well, the branding, the product integrity component, which is the warning labels, how that reads, the symbols, all of that stuff, right? So as you're designing all of those parts, they all want to come together, okay? And you want to be able to sell that billboard no matter where you are. You also want to make sure that as you're designing something, you are not, I'm going to use the term xenophobic about it. Like, just because you're designing something and you live in the US and you speak English, that does not mean that your product, that your marketing campaign is not going to be seen in another country, right? So those warning labels, you might be like, that's ugly, that's terrible. Nobody's going to want to buy my pool float if it has all these warning labels on it. Well, I can tell you right now, and from experience and being a person who has a patent on a pool float, they don't care. They just put it there, make it look as good as you can, and designers are going to cringe. They're not going to want to hear this. They want everything to be beautiful. You can still make it beautiful with all the warning labels, okay? And that goes for the product component, and that goes for the packaging itself. So, you know, you get your 80-20, you make it as beautiful as you possibly can, you tell the story, and you get across all of the warning labels and all the things that you need to do. And I feel like I just went on a ramble, so I'm not sure.
There was no ramble. Please ramble. Ramble is where we get good information. Please. All right, don't worry about it. We'll just edit it. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to edit it out. Please ramble. Your information is good. And first of all, that is really important information for anyone who's expecting or wanting or even hoping someday to expand to any other country. Let's just say you want to be able to sell to Canada. You're here and you want to be able to sell into just Canada. You're talking about French English labeling. You're talking about an entirely different coding system and warning system. I'm assuming UPCs might change, et cetera. So that's a big deal. I would not always think of. I have some items my daughter sent me from Korea, and the front of the foodstuffs has in English and Korean, but the back, if you want to know how many calories is in it, or if you want to know how caffeinated, not so much. So, you know, for whatever reason, they do English and Korean on the front, but it wasn't expected to be made for export. So, you know, it was something she brought me. But it's, you know, when you flip something like that over, what you were saying really struck a chord with me, because just last week I had that situation. It's like, oh, well, what exactly am I going to be eating and drinking here? Because we're used to seeing it in English, or English and French, or English and Spanish, but not, you know, just another language. And you're right, you can't be xenophobic about it, and plan ahead if you can, depending on your product, depending what you're going to do. And this is another reason why you need experts and graphic designers and people who know how this kind of thing works, the zebra codes, etc. Hold on, my printer comes to life about this time every day. Okay, so yeah, you can't be xenophobic. We take a pause. You can't be xenophobic. You want to think ahead. You want to think about what you're going to be doing in the future with that, for sure. So let's talk about budget. It's great to say, all right, I'm going to do this fantastic, you know, beautifully printed up packaging. One of the examples I think about is, you know, I mean, Chewy, Amazon, they all have their own, you know, I know when that box is on my porch, that branding, there's a reason they have it so big, so that you see that Chewy.com as it goes by to your neighbor's front step, and you know that they're buying from Chewy. That's a billboard, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, there's other people who do things like they write notes all over it. There's a company that I bought peanuts and cashews and things from because I couldn't find what I wanted, pistachios. I couldn't find what I wanted for a certain holiday baking. And they put wording and stuff all over their boxes. And if I remember what it is, I'll tell you. But it's really, really cool in a way, because it's got all these about stories and funky little sayings and jokes and funny things, about how, here are your nuts, and, what's inside this box is just nuts. It's very funny. And I have to remember who it is, and I'll put it in the show notes when I remember. But they make a very good product. So that's a great way to do it. And then you can also do with Charlotte's Web, which is the top CBD company in the country, top producer. They have mandalas, and they have their name, and their packaging is made so that the one little pretty bottle and it looks like it's perfume that's being shipped to you in this beautiful, eco-friendly, recyclable cardboard box. But really, it's been designed to not only present, but also protect that bottle from breaking. It doesn't need a lot of extra packaging. It doesn't need a lot of bubble wrap, which can't be recycled. Imagine that. And we keep trying. I keep trying to throw it in the recycle bin, but then I remember I can't. So that's all beautiful. But I'm a startup. I'm someone who's got a great product, but I don't have the CBD oil industry budget. What do I do? What can I do to start out printing and budgeting in a economical but professional looking manner right now? What would you suggest?
So there's a couple of ways, and if you have insider knowledge and a really great designer and a marketing people that you're working with, they may or may not have some contacts to get you to some people that can make a custom box that is already drop tested to fit your product. Things that you can do that would save yourself some funds. As you're, just for shipping boxes. Okay. There are places where you can purchase a box that is to the size that you need, that would be general and would fit like many of your products. And so that might leave some air sometimes and some air not of the time. I ended up taking a job with a corrugate manufacturer just so I could learn how to make those die lines and be really adept at what it is to pick the different levels of corrugate, which there are a whole bunch depending on what you're shipping.
When you say corrugate, you're talking about corrugated cardboard, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep. And like Kraft, like it's brown and it's got like flutes in it. So
for people who might not know what that is, because not everybody knows.
Your standard brown box, like Amazon, that is a corrugate box that has screen printing on it. If you don't have the budget to screen print on it and do a whole bunch, you can do stickers. You can get a stamp. You can buy custom shipping tape. So Amazon has that custom shipping tape sometimes, and that's like almost better than a sticker because it adheres so well. I have quite a few of my clients I have using Sticker Mule, mostly because when I do a packaging design, so I'll get a bunch of labels. I'll get their labels, stickers, packing tape, all that kind of thing. Once I have it in Sticker Mule for them, they can go and reorder it without me. So whenever I design something for somebody, because I like to help everyone, I only have so much time, I like to set them up so that they are self-sufficient to a point. So that's one way to do it. You can also go on like box.com websites and just kind of pick. You could use UPS ones and then put your own tape on it, or the ones that you get from the post office. So there are a couple of different ways doing that. Like, and that's if you're shipping something, right? So say you're in a farmer's market or you have a store, then what you can get is whatever bag you're looking for, right? You can have like a brown paper bag, what have you. And again, you can use like an ink stamp. You can make a stencil and spray paint on it. You can do sticker. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for. I've done all of these options. The spray paint smells after a while, so you don't want that with your t-shirts. So there's quite a few ways to get around it, and because I've gone and worked for so many people and tried to figure out how it's all made, I have really gotten good at doing it at the smallest of budgets that we can work with, because I really like helping people launch. And then when they're ready to go full scale and have 50,000 boxes, printed with a UV coating that they're going to put in Target, I have those contacts as well, and know how to get that done. the one thing I can tell you about that is that the prettier the packaging, the more testing it has to go through for the drop testing and stuff. And sometimes that beautiful thing that you had in your brain becomes something different so that it passes all the tests.
So it starts out as a really beautiful box, and then you drop it from a 40-foot ladder to see if it'll make it through the shipping process, and you end up with a very flat box. And going back to the drawing board, is that what you're telling me? Is that what I have to look forward to?
Sometimes, and that's where it's really great to have someone in your corner who has a holistic approach and experience when it comes to package design. So I've been the graphic designer, I've been the marketer, I've been the product designer, and I've been the package designer in that I have designed the package, the die line, the material, the everything, not just the graphics of it. So hopefully creative directors out there have all of that holistic experience and have gone to the factories and seen it all go, because that's how someone can say, okay, this package costs $1.40. I need it to cost $1 in order for it to hit our pricing structured in order to make it get into a store so that we can make $1 million. Now, you need to cut 20 cents out. Well, when you walk up to someone who's new in the industry and you say, take 20 cents out of this package, well, what does that mean? That is a ridiculous thing to say to somebody who doesn't know.
Hold on. Your internet connection cut out a second. So say I have to cut 20 cents out from the price and then cut out. So you got to start from there.
That works. All right. So if your team, your pricing team, your accounting team, your executive directors or whatnot, they walk up to you as a package designer and they say, I need to cut 20 cents out of the packaging because the product costs more, because we just found out there's a tariff or something like that. If you or your creative director, the person running your department, don't have like a holistic approach, like a holistic knowledge of how the whole process works, then someone walking up to you and saying, take 20 cents out, it's just foreign. It doesn't make any sense. Now with the experience I have and the heartache that I've gone through, to keep the pretty box. I'm now aware of that.
Keep the pretty box.
It's so important. And that can be the difference.
I want my pretty box.
Exactly. And
wait,
sometimes,
hold on. I want my pretty packaging shipping box. Let's say it that way.
That was cute. I love that. And yes, that is the battle cry, is that you just want to keep it. So sometimes, there's different kind of packaging, right? There's clamshell packaging. There's the plastic shell with a cardboard back. There's a cardboard box with no let's call it a glass window, but it's acetate. And there's some that have the acetate windows. There's all these different options, right? And sometimes when you think you're taking money out of a package, you're actually adding cost in. So it kind of just depends on what you're trying to do and the drop testing you're trying to get through and the product that's inside of it on how to take that cost out. And that can be, choosing less tape and doing more folds in a package. It could be changing the material from PET to a different type of plastic. It could be having a window where you can touch the product, like in a Justin Bieber doll, where you can make them sing, to making it.
We're going back to the Justin Bieber doll.
So Justin Bieber dolls, I can't.
you see those in your nightmares now, I'm sure. So all of this, getting back away from the shipping and the packaging, because that's all very important. But for anyone listening to us who's not going to be yet shipping or packaging or putting it on a truck or in the mail, there's still packaging people may want to use in their store. That still has to meet a certain budget. It might have to have less folds. It might have to have less cardboard. So that holistic approach, that approach where somebody knows all the pieces, the whole idea, is still going to apply, correct?
Oh, yeah. And what I'm speaking to at this point in making it pretty and shippable, a lot of times it needs to be both. Because here's the deal. There's the packaging just for the package, but then there's a box for that packaging to be shipped. So it's a whole nother piece. And then that's where your planogram comes in.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's
so Exactly. If I'm going to sell candy or a cupcake or buttons or anything in a pretty box with the little, you said acetate window, the little window you can look through, or jewelry, that's got to also be able to survive if at some point I decide to build an Etsy store or build an e-commerce site or start mailing it out through my Facebook page. It's still going to have to survive shipping, correct? So that's what I'm hearing. This is something we all have to think about if we plan on expanding at all.
Absolutely, because there's a cost involved, right? So there's, your tangible on-shelf direct customer experience that they're dealing with, your Apple EarPod cases, right? But that beautiful plastic case that comes to you in a cardboard case that is now shipped in another case, and then all of that lives on an inventory shelf somewhere. So when you're thinking about packaging, it's not necessarily just the pretty part. It's all of those parts, and all of those parts have costs. So if your product costs $20 to make, then your packaging is $2.50. But that $2.50 packaging cost, it's the pretty box, and it's the box it's shipped in, and it's the warehouse it's sitting in. So I know I'm going a little bit too deep here, but those are things to consider. So as a small business owner, or a big business owner, as you're doing it, it's all about the ratio of what you can afford, and it adjusts you. So you have to be, ready to change what you're expecting, I guess. Not lower your expectation, change your expectation.
Right. Pivot. I think we've all learned how to pivot this last year of pandemic. So pivot in a way that works for your budget, and still how it comes back for me. So if I had you on my team, which, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, I do often. If I had her on my team, or you were working with her directly, and you're saying, listen, I'm not going to be shipping this to anybody except through the mail for now. I just need this and that. But at some point you might not be. And you're going to come to me, your marketing team, and you're going to say, well, I want it to be pretty. The customer has to feel like they really got something beautiful and something that they paid good money for to have show up at their door. It's not a recycled, cornflakes box from the grocery store. And of course, that's exactly what you want. But everything costs money. So there's ways to do that in the beginning. And then there's ways to do that later without losing the inherent structure of a box that is also functional. Because you can have pretty, or you can have functional, or yes, Virginia, you can have both. So that's what's really important, and why you need to have an expert and not just kind of guess, because guessing is expensive. I would say Nicholle would agree with me. She's nodding at me in my video, but you can't see her. Nicholle and I both talk with our hands. This has been a really interesting video that you can't see, but wouldn't you say, Nicholle, that is pretty and functional are not mutually exclusive, correct? You just have to find the way to marry them?
Absolutely. And it can absolutely be done. And sometimes that challenge makes the package that much more beautiful. And maybe not everybody will appreciate it because they won't know what it looked like before. But I have seen time and time again that functionality breeds gorgeousness a lot of the time.
We don't want bleeding. Bleeding is not functional. Bleeding is bad. Yes. We don't want any packaging that's leaking anything. That's right. No, definitely bad. So yes, I think that's really, really good information for anyone. I've certainly learned things. So you're leveraging the power of your package branding. You're not decimating your marketing budget or your shipping budget or your returns budget, because if people are refusing things or returning things or telling you it's broken when it gets there and you have to send another one, that's going to hurt your budget. So all of these things are good to know ahead of time. So I'm really glad that you're able to talk so knowledgeably about this for people. And I think this applies to everybody. I think this applies to people who are just, dropping things off at a storefront or, offering things in their own storefront, right through to people who are shipping internationally, because at some point it's always going to apply in some way to every business. It's a universal business truth. Correct? I think I keep saying correct because I want her to agree with me, obviously. So that's your cue. That's your cue to agree with me.
I agree. You're totally right. 100%. I'll yell it from the
That's all I want from my
rooftops.
podcast guest is to tell me how I'm totally right. 100%. Listen to me all the time. That's what I want. No, not really. You're allowed to disagree with me.
Well, I agree. I just want to make sure I'm not talking over you because I'm like learning this whole thing, you know, and it's like in court, you're like, wait, you got to wait for the stenographer to like do the right thing. So I'm just working on my
this is not court.
etiquette.
No. No, this is just a conversation. This is just a conversation. I know we have to, not talk over each other too much, but no, absolutely. This is just a conversation. So yes, that has been very, very interesting. And I think this is a really great way to start thinking about packaging, start thinking about the customer experience that comes with your packaging beyond the looks, but also how did it arrive? How did it look when it got to them? You can't always avoid the package getting, poked through with the forklift at the shipping dock. It's happened. I've seen it happen in e-commerce plenty of times. You can't always expect that it's not going to get tossed, over your fence because you've got dogs and it's going to land on your sidewalk. But the more it can survive that, the better the customer is going to see your package as, wow, that's, if they spent this much time and interest in their packaging, the product inside is going to be awesome. And that's an important part of marketing. We think we can cut corners in certain places, but we have to think about how the customer will interpret it as well, not just our budget. And like you, I've worked for businesses that either were just launching or, they didn't want to invest a lot. And I had to find ways to do things on a shoestring budget when I started my career in e-commerce, in retail. And it's good lessons to learn because you learn what you can get away with doing on a really low budget and what you should not ever do on a low budget. And there's different places to do that. And I think that you have explained that very well. So thank you. So anything you'd like to leave us with? Tell us where we can find you on social media and what your next thing is, how people can get a hold of you if they want to talk more about this and talk to you about, maybe hiring you for your expertise.
So my company, like we said before, is called Partner with a Spark. I am launching my website here in the next day or two, which is partnerwithaspark.com. So super simple. My Instagram that has my portfolio is Partner with a Spark. And then my personal public Instagram, if you just kind of wanted to see who I am as a person, is Luminous Spark, which is where all the sparkiness is coming from. So yeah, on my website, you'll be able to set up a consultation if you'd like to ask about packaging or anything, in that sense. Additionally, my latest project that I'm so excited about is a brand new skydiving rig that I am helping with. And so if you guys follow along, hopefully you get to see exclusive images of it soon.
Yes. By the time that we get this up and out to the podcast, your website should be roaring along and in the next few days. And definitely I'm going to be watching for that. Now, for those of you who have been following along with my podcast, we also had a podcast with her husband, Robert LaFrance. And he talked about all the things he does, one of them being a skydiver. Nicholle is also very outdoorsy. And she, now what kind of, you do trail runs, right? Trail races, like in the woods, like you run through the woods like somebody's chasing you, but on purpose and voluntarily?
Preferably at night. Yes.
So if you haven't listened to Robert's, go back and listen to that and then listen to her talk about this. And yes, preferably at night. Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's awesome. I love hiking at night, especially when there's a full moon. So I think that's great. I'm not a runner. I wish I was a runner, but walking, hiking, definitely at night would be a lot of fun. So I'm sure that running is amazing.
It makes you run really fast.
What's that?
No, but because the trail runs that I do, sometimes there's people around, sometimes they're not, and we're all wearing headlamps. So you just see little lights running around, and then you hear like animals. So you just kind of yell, you're like, oh, like out in there, so that because they tell you to make noises so that animals don't attack you. So I just run really, really, really fast. My times are great whenever I'm on that loop, and it's my favorite. So
yeah, my times would be record speed too if a bear was chasing me. But
or snakes.
I'm
Or
not
all
afraid of
kinds
snakes
stuff.
unless we don't have much in the poisonous realm here. We have two, and they don't come out much when they hear you coming. But other snakes, I don't mind picking up. The poisonous ones, I would pick them up, but I don't think I'd like the consequences. So yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I know you can see a lot of that on her Instagram, and just really, I don't want to say daredevil. I don't know if you're a daredevil. I think you're quietly a daredevil and we can't tell. Your husband's very out there daredevil, not so much. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. And everybody
Absolutely.
Go hit her up on her website, partner with the Spark, and on all her social media and on her Facebook page, and see what she's done. I'm going to be launching a campaign soon with a little altered logo she did for me. So watch for that. I'll let you know. And I will talk to you very soon, Nicholle, and I hope to have you back on again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This has really been great.
You're welcome. All right. And so don't forget to subscribe, download, and follow along with us for more great stuff coming up on my next episode.
You've been listening to Marketing Myths and Magic, part of the Xvadio Podcast Network. You can find us at xvadio.com/podcasts, as well as the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.